Welcome back to the channel. As we step deeper into the shadows, the world we thought we knew shifts beneath our feet. Baruka's path has only just begun. Once a fierce orc lord, now a shadow soldier bound to Jinwoo Sung, the Shadow Monarch. The battles ahead will challenge not only his strength, but his heart, will, and the very bonds of power and loyalty. In this part, we will explore Baruka's rise as a true leader within Jinwoo's army, the dangerous new threats appearing beyond the abyssal rift, and alliances forged in fire and darkness. Prepare for fierce battles, shocking betrayals, and the forging of legends in shadow. Stay with us, like, comment, and subscribe to follow every twist and turn of this epic tale. Now, let's journey onward, into part 2, where the true storm begins. The abyssal rift was a wound on the world, a yawning chasm where time and space fractured, where light bent and warped under the weight of ancient curses. The air trembled with unseen power, charged with a palpable darkness that seeped into bones and hearts alike. Baruka stood at the edge of the rift's mortal reach, his silhouette sharp against the swirling shadows. Twin crescent blades flickered with ghostly blue fire, casting sharp glints on the twisted stone like twin moons in eclipse. He wasn't alone. Shadow soldiers gathered behind him, their forms shifting like smoke, a legion shaped by sunken kingdoms and broken hopes. Jinwoo Sung watched calmly from the rear, that cool, unreadable gaze, the calm before a storm. His presence was a keystone holding the fragile fortress of shadows together, yet even his aura shifted, wary of the strange energies flowing from the rift. Remember, Jinwoo said softly, voice cutting shadows like a blade, this is more than a dungeon. It tests the mind and soul as much as the body. Baruka's eyes, still shimmering with violet fire, met Jinwoo's. Let it come. I will carve a path through shadow and madness alike. The battalion stepped forward, swallowed by the rift's dark maw. The world twisted. Walls bled shifting runes, cursed whispers filled silent halls, and monstrous horrors caressed the edges of nightmare. Shards of broken reality sparkled with cursed energy, fragments of lost time and twisted memories clinging to their fracture. Baruka led with precise ferocity, blinking between dimensions, slicing through shadow hounds that lunged like smoke wave claws. His commands were sharp, rallying faltering soldiers and inspiring new strength. In the depths, the fight escalated, not just with monstrous enemies but reflections of the soldiers' own fears and desires made flesh by the rift's corrupt magic. The biting chill of isolation, the gnawing dread of abandonment, and the flicker of forgotten memories threatened the cohesion of the pack. Baruka, standing strong amid the chaos, roared, a rallying thunder calling shadow to shadow. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the true hunt. But the true darkness waited ahead, looming, patient, inevitable. The abyssal rift was a crucible beyond imagination, a place where twisted shadows clung to every crevice, and reality bent under the weight of ancient curses. Time here fractured, seconds stretched or snapped in chaotic rhythm, disorienting all who dared enter. Baruka's every breath was a battle against creeping madness. His violet eyes, lingering remnants of primal fury, darted as they adjusted to shifting vistas of dark stone and swirling mist. His twin crescent blades burned with spectral fire, the only constant light in this living nightmare. Form up! Baruka roared, voice a thunderclap over the murmuring shadows. His booming commands wove the scattered soldiers into a fierce pack, each shadow melding with another as they braced for assault. From the swirling dark emerged the first wave, creatures of twisted dream and nightmare. Monstrous hunters, jagged and spectral, struck like living shadows with razor claws and corrupted magic. Baruka was first to meet the charge. His crescent blades sliced through the air, leaving trails of blue flame and cinders as limbs severed, and curses shattered. The sound of metal clashing with claw filled the rift's hollow corridors, echoing a rhythmic beat, violent and relentless. Yet the battle was more than physical. The rift fed on fear and doubt, casting illusions that shattered perception. Soldiers glimpsed lost loved ones, felt phantom pains, or saw the battlefield dissolve into endless void. Baruka clenched his teeth, pushing back the creeping fog of madness with sheer force of will. Focus. This is no place for hesitation or doubt. His voice was iron, a beacon guiding faltering hearts back from the edge. Behind Baruka, shadows faltered briefly, swaying as phantoms clawed at their minds. Then Igras, ever the stalwart knight, raised his crimson sword, its gleam cutting illusions and necromantic lies. Hold the line. We fight as one. Igras called, voice resolute. Baruka surged forward beside him, blades spinning in a deadly dance, eclipsed fury unleashed in a cyclone of steel and flame. Shadows exploded as monsters fell beneath the tide of cutting light. But the rift was a living entity, not satisfied with mere killing, it retaliated, warping the battlefield. Stone twisted, corridors closed, and a shriek of dark winds enveloped the army. Jinwoo's voice cut through the chaos, amplified by his power. Concentrate your cursed energy. Push through the distortions. Baruka's mind snapped to focus, pushing his senses beyond the physical, hunting shadows between warped moments in time. Ahead, a colossal shade, the rift's heart, rose, a swirling storm of shadows and cursed flame, mutating environment and air alike. Baruka met the behemoth head-on, his blades ignited with Jinwoo's mana, spinning in a deadly arc that tore through thick shadow hides and shattered cursed essence. Their clash rippled through the rift, warping space and tearing illusions apart. Baruka felt ancient terror pulse in the monster's blows, but he did not yield. Steel met shadow. Fire clashed with void. In this maelstrom of destruction, Baruka's leadership solidified. His roar was both command and challenge, uniting shadows fractured by fear and forging them into a pack that would not break. The fight was long and brutal. Many soldiers fell, swallowed by the rift's hunger, but Baruka and his pack prevailed, shattering the rift's malignant heart. Exhausted but victorious, Baruka raised his blades to the dimming light, flame flickering but unspent. We have survived the abyssal storm, Baruka said, voice low but fierce. But the true tempest is still rising. Jinwoo appeared beside him, eyes calm but sharp. This victory marks a turning point. Now, the shadows will either be our salvation or our doom. Baruka nodded, steel resolve hardening into unbreakable will. The wolf runs with the pack. We will face what comes, together. The rift groaned, its shadows alive with a malevolent hunger as Baruka and the pack plunged deeper into its warped heart. Time fractured like shards of glass, stretching seconds into eternity and collapsing them into flashes of chaos. Every breath tasted of decay and madness. Baruka's violet eyes scanned the twisted battleground ahead. Jagged rock formations shifted and churned like the ocean's dark waves. Lingering cursed energy crackled like static in the air, distorting senses and blurring realities. Around him, shadows moved and flickered, tentative but ready, soldiers forged in darkness yet human enough to feel the rising dread. Ahead, a monstrous silhouette shifted, rippling with cursed flame and void-twisted warcraft. The rift's corrupted lord, a leviathan born of shadow and nightmare, seized the battlefield like a tidal wave ready to drown hope. Baruka tightened his grip on his twin crescent blades, flames licking their edges as he leapt forward, cloaked in spectral fire and shadow, an unstoppable storm. The air exploded with the clash of steel and ruin, a tempest of light and darkness that echoed deep into the rift's bones. The battle was more than survival, it was the will to claim the very soul of the abyssal rift. Baruka's instincts danced between fury and precision, each strike a symphony of deadly grace, each maneuver a lesson in disciplined chaos. Around him, shadow soldiers flowed like dark water, striking with terrifying coordination under his command. Even as the rift's illusions writhed, visions of broken pasts, lost comrades, and whispered betrayals, Baruka's mind remained clear. His howl cut through the nightmare, a rallying cry to lead the pack from darkness into light. But the cost was high. Wounds deepened, voices faltered, and even the strongest faltered in the face of this living nightmare. Jinwoo's voice rose, steady and cold, a lifeline across fractured time. Hold fast. The shadow's edge must not waver. Baruka's resolve solidified. The wolf led unbroken through tempestuous chaos, sharpening the pack's survival into a blade forged by fire and shadow. As the rift trembled and the Dark Lord reeled beneath Baruka's wrath, a spark of victory shone in the encroaching gloom, a promise that even the deepest shadows could not swallow the light completely. The aftermath of the abyssal rift assault still hung like a heavy fog over Jinwoo's fortress. The victorious shadows had pushed back the immediate threat, but the cost weighed heavily. The air inside the sanctuary was thick with exhaustion, whispered doubts, and the faint sting of betrayal. Baruka sat in the dim light of the war room, twin crescent blades resting across scarred knees, his eyes distant yet burning with quiet fury. The victories, though impressive, had laid bare the fractures along the Shadow Army's seams, fractures between soldiers, commanders, and even friends. Igris, ever the noble heart, had begun questioning the balance between Baruka's fury and Jinwoo's strategic coldness. A pack knows strength in unity, not fractured pride, Igris murmured during a tense council meeting. Baruka's wild heart drives us, yes, but control must bind us or we fall apart. Baruka had responded with biting honesty. Control without power is a cage. I am not here to be caged, I am here to be the storm. Tensions simmered as shadows whispered courtesies one day and sizzled with hostility the next. Baruka's journeyman soldiers looked to him for guidance, their loyalty fierce but tinged with uncertainty about the conflicts within the leadership. Meanwhile, Jinwoo prepared for the coming trials. Intel reported new dungeons awakening, shadows growing restless, and a mysterious force manipulating darkness from the veil itself. Baruka's role was no longer only to fight but to unify, a wolf among wolves with the burden of leadership. Amidst the war preparations, Baruka stole moments for reflection. Each fight, each command, etched new lines of purpose into his spirit. He had survived death and rebirth, he would survive betrayal and war. A sudden call from Jinwoo summoned Baruka to the command hall. The Shadow Monarch's gaze was sharp as ever. The threads of unknown enemies weave a web that could suffocate us. You will lead a covert mission to unravel this threat, alone, beyond shadows. Baruka nodded, voice steady but fierce. Then I will hunt the spider before the web closes. As he departed, shadows seemed to lean closer, watching a legend in the making. The storm was no longer distant. It was here. The shadowed halls of Jinwoo's fortress echoed with quiet murmurs, tensions woven like fragile threads between warriors bound by darkness and loyalty. The victory against the abyssal rift's horrors had come at a steep price, and the heavy weight of survival pressed on every soul within those walls. Baruka, once the untamed orc lord and now a shadow soldier reborn, sat apart from the others in the dim light of the war room. His twin crescents rested upon his knees, cool and gleaming despite the faint scars that marred his blades from the recent brutal conflicts. His violet eyes, smoldering with both fire and restraint, hovered over the war table, tracing the sprawling maps that detailed the expanding threats beyond the known realms. Each mark on the map was a pulse of danger, gates awakening, dungeons stirring, whispers of enemies both mortal and supernatural ready to challenge the fragile order Jinwoo fought so fiercely to hold. The council gathered, faces grim under the flickering torchlight. Igris, the noble-hearted knight whose crimson sword symbolized discipline and honor, stood beside Iron, the brute shadow soldier whose hammer was a walking testament to sheer power. Their gaze often shifted to Baruka with a complicated mix of respect and wariness. Igris, speaking with solemn conviction, broke the tense silence. The pack's strength lies in unity and order, not in uncontrolled storms. Baruka's power fuels us, yes, but it must be tempered lest it tear us apart. Baruka's answer came with the low growl of a wolf feeling cornered yet unbowed. Control without power is an empty command. I am the storm that tempers the pack. Without me, we are but shadows scattered by the wind. The room held its breath. Jinwoo's calm voice finally cut through, carrying authority that demanded attention. Both your truths are halves of a whole. Leadership demands sacrifice from pride and fury alike. Baruka, Igras, you stand as two sides of the same blade, and it is that blade that must strike the enemy together. The discussion pivoted to strategy, an intricate dance of alliances, reconnaissance missions, and preparations for the dark forces gathering beyond the abyssal rift. But beneath the plans and orders, the undercurrent of mistrust rippled louder. Baruka knew the path forward would test more than just strength. It would require him to navigate the dangerous realm of leadership, where every decision could unite or unravel the pack. Night fell heavy, shadows deepening their grasp not only over the fortress but over hearts and minds within. Baruka stood alone on the ramparts, the cold wind carrying whispers of fate and fire. The crescent moon overhead was veiled by shifting clouds, a quiet omen of the storm rising before the dawn. His thoughts turned inward. The battles fought, the lives lost, and the uncertain future wove into a tapestry of purpose and dread. This is no longer about survival alone, Baruka murmured. This is about forging a legacy from shadow and flame, or falling into oblivion. The wolf's eyes gleamed fiercely as he awaited the coming tempest. The silence inside Jinwoo's fortress was deceptive. The war room hummed with quiet urgency as generals and commanders exchanged grim updates on new dungeons awakening and shadow forces shifting like restless tides. Jinwoo stood at the center, his gaze fixed on Baruka, a warrior reborn from orcish warlord to shadow soldier of unprecedented ferocity and pride. Baruka, Jinwoo's voice cut through the murmurs, calm yet commanding, your trial intensifies. Evidence points to a burgeoning power beyond the abyssal rift's edges, a force weaving shadows and fate into a web we cannot ignore. Baruka listened, eyes narrowing. You want me to hunt the spider before its web consumes us. Jinwoo nodded, a covert mission. Alone, beyond any shadow's reach. Extract information, disrupt their plans. Your wolf's instincts will guide you. Baruka's lips curled in a rare smile. The lone wolf runs toward the storm. Resolution and tension mingled in Jinwoo's gaze. This assignment was not just a test of Baruka's strength, but his judgment, his ability to lead not a pack but a delicate balance of trust and secrecy. Preparing for the mission, Baruka pored over maps and gathered intelligence, each brushstroke of enemy movements weaving a sinister pattern. His mind, honed by countless battles, visualized infiltration paths, escape routes, and shadows within shadows. The night before departure, the war room was cloaked in whispered strategy, plans within plans. Yet beneath the tactical brilliance simmered unease. Baruka felt it creeping through the shadows, a lurking discord seeded by jealousy, fear, and suspicion. Even some of Jinwoo's most trusted shadows questioned Baruka's independence, wary that his fierce spirit might fracture the fragile unity. Yet Baruka carried an iron certainty. His path was sacrifice and solitude, a lone wolf's burden he embraced with blazing pride. The next dawn found Baruka slipping beyond the fortress walls, engulfed by the silent cloak of shadow. The world below lay rippling with danger, threat, and opportunity interlaced with the unknown. He stepped into the fractured lands, where myths breathed, shadows whispered secrets, and the true hunt began. Baruka melted into the shadows beyond the safety of Jinwoo's fortress. The creeping dark was his ally and cloak as he moved through twisted realms barely touched by daylight. His mission was clear: infiltrate the mysterious forces amassing beyond the abyssal rift, uncover their plans, and cripple their rise before the Shadow Empire stood on the brink of collapse. The world beyond was a shattered reflection of reality, a place where time fractured like lightning across ruptured skies, where cursed magic warped stone and flesh alike. Every breath Baruka drew was a battle against corruption seeping into his soul, and every step brought new dangers masked by flickering illusions and creeping dread. Though alone, Baruka's mind was never quiet. Flashbacks of battles past, whispers of comrades lost, and Jinwoo's steady command echoed constantly, guiding him through the chaos. Yet, even in solitude, the weight of leadership pressed heavily upon him. The shadows under his command were fracturing, loyalty wavering as fear and envy festered beneath veiled smiles and healthy rivalries. Baruka's resolve became as much about uniting a splintering pack as surviving external threats. In this perilous realm, Baruka encountered allies both unexpected and enigmatic, rogue shadows, third-party hunters, and even magical beasts hinting at older magics long buried by war and time. His sharp mind wove alliances from fractured relationships, tested loyalties, and uneasy truces, all while tracking the pulse of the rising darkness twisting fate's weave. Each encounter, each conquest, pushed Baruka's limits, physically, mentally, and spiritually, driving him to master new techniques blending spectral might with raw instinct. But with greater power came greater peril. Enemy forces unleashed traps woven from fear and doubt, and Baruka faced betrayal from within shadow ranks, those tempted by the promise of power offered by the unknown puppeteers beyond the rift. Haunted by visions crafted by enemies and his own inner demons, Baruka's journey became one of grit and grace, where every choice risked shattering his soul or forging it into something transcendent. As he approached the epicenter of the rising storm, Baruka knew this covert mission was the crucible of his fate, the moment to prove himself not only a shadow soldier but a true leader of the pack, or to be consumed by darkness. Baruka moved through the fractured lands beyond the rift with the silent grace of a shadow stalking ghosts. The twisted terrain was a maze of illusions and curses, where time fractured and shadows wept secrets into the wind like broken glass. Every breath tasted of decay, every step risked unraveling more than flesh. Still, Baruka's twin crescent blades ignited with spectral flame, cutting a path not just through twisting stone but through unseen dangers lurking in every shadow's edge. His mission bore the weight of the Shadow Empire's survival. To venture alone, to pierce the web of lies and deception weaving through this nightmare realm, was the greatest test of his strength and cunning. As he crossed into deeper shadows, whispered curses folded around him like living chains. Figures emerged. Rogue shadows, twisted remnants of hunters lost to darkness, and arcane beasts shaped from forgotten magics. Some fought him outright, others watched with wary eyes, waiting for intent. Baruka's instincts flared. Moments from death sharpened each breath. He parried, struck, vanished between dimensional folds, his blades dance a deadly poem in spectral light. Yet the enemy was not only flesh and shadow, but minds, twisted visions designed to fracture resolve. Baruka faced illusions of betrayal, doubt, and despair, the ghosts of fallen comrades accusing him silently of failure. But the wolf's heart beat with fury and pride. He howled a silent vow into the void. This shadow still runs free. I will not falter. I am the storm. With iron will, he shattered lies, forged fragile alliances among rogue shadows seeking redemption, and hunted pathways hidden deep in the labyrinth. Each step closer to the rift's dark core revealed secrets darker than the abyss, entities manipulating time and space, weaving futures of ruin, and plotting to overturn the order Jinwoo fought to maintain. Baruka's journey was no longer just a mission, it was an odyssey of spirit where shadow met soul and survival was the edge of every breath. The covert mission had become a crucible. And from its fires, a leader, not just a soldier, would emerge. The deeper Baruka forced into the broken lands, the more the rancid grip of darkness sought to consume him, not merely through brute force, but subtle whispers bent to fracture his spirit. Each shadow flicker carried illusions of doubt and betrayal, grinding at his iron will. Yet Baruka pushed onward, driven by the piercing howl of a wolf lost to the wild and found again by the pack. His path brought him to a shattered fortress nestled between rending crevices. The stark stones pulsed with cursed energy, and the very air vibrated with menace. Within the ruins awaited not a beast, but a serpent, a shadow manipulator weaving webs of conspiracy that threatened to unravel Jinwoo's empire. Baruka's approach was silent, every step ghost-like as he melded into the shifting shadows cast by corrupted spires. His spectral blades hummed faintly, ready to rend falsehood from flesh. Suddenly, from the gloom, figures emerged, twisted hunters fallen to forbidden magics, corrupted shadows hungry for power and vengeance. The battle erupted with savage grace. Baruka moved like a storm incarnate, cloaking and striking from the void, his blades tearing through cursed flesh and spirit alike. Each motion was a carefully crafted dance of death, balancing ferocity with tactical precision. In the heart of combat, Baruka faced the shadow manipulator, a being dripping with malefic charm and cunning. They clashed fiercely, shadow against shadow, flame against frozen intent. The manipulator's traps nearly ensnared Baruka's mind. Visions of failure and loss flickered, twisted memories of past mistakes meant to unravel his resolve. But the wolf within roared against the darkness, breaking illusions with a fury born of rebirth and belonging. With a final, devastating strike, the eclipsed fury, Baruka shattered the manipulator's hold, unraveling the web of deceit that threatened his pack. Victory was hard-won but decisive. Returning to Jinwoo's fortress with critical intelligence and new allies, Baruka's mission had altered the tide, not just in battle, but in spirit and strategy. The pack had faced shadows within and without, and had emerged stronger. But ahead loomed the darkest storm yet. Jinwoo's gaze met Baruka's as the war room buzzed with renewed urgency. The spider's web was but the first layer, Jinwoo intoned. The true darkness awakens soon. Baruka nodded, eyes blazing with unyielding strength. Let the storm come. The wolf does not fear the tempest. As shadows gathered, Baruka stood ready, a beacon of ferocity, loyalty, and hope. The hunt was far from over. The fortress walls whispered under the weight of approaching danger as Jinwoo's shadow army regrouped after Baruka's perilous mission. The reports and intelligence gathered stirred unease deep within the war room, a mosaic of threats emerging from shadowed corners, political intrigue, and unseen hands manipulating the battlefield. Baruka sat quietly, sharpening his twin crescent blades, each stroke a reminder of battles fought and victories carved from darkness. Yet his thoughts churned darker, troubled by whispers of dissent growing within the ranks. His fierce independence, once hailed as strength, now cast shadows over fragile alliances. The council gathered once again in the flickering torchlight, faces pale with concern and burdened with uncertainty. We may have delayed the rising storm, but the spider's web tightens, Jinwoo began, his quiet authority drawing attention. Our enemies employ tactics beyond brute force. We fight on many fronts, the battlefield, the shadows, even within ourselves. Igris spoke sharply. Baruka's mission was a success, but the fractures deepen. If internal discord is not healed, the pack risks unraveling before the true war begins. Baruka's eyes burned with restrained fury. The pack is not weak because of the storm. It is the storm made flesh. We thrive in chaos. We unite through survival, not comfort. Tensions ignited beneath words, old rivalries and fresh suspicion threatening to consume them. Jinwoo raised a hand, silencing the gathering. Words are wind. Action must bind us. Baruka, your next mission is different, a political gambit that requires more than blade. You must act as shadow and spear, forge alliances, uncover enemies in our midst, and root out treachery. Baruka nodded, the wolf accepting the mantle beyond soldierhood. The hunt becomes deeper, the enemies closer. As preparations began, Baruka retreated to the training grounds, where even the shadows seemed to watch his every movement. Iron and Igris approached, the complex dance of friendship and rivalry playing silently between them. You carry the pack's hope in its danger, Iron grunted, hammer resting on a shoulder. Pride will be your undoing or your salvation. Igris added, voice calm yet sharp, balance is fragile. The wolf must learn when to lead and when to follow. Baruka's answer was a dark smile, one that carried both promise and warning. I will learn. The storm is patient. Outside, the skies darkened with an unnatural twilight as whispers of war echoed beyond the fortress gates. The web of fate grew taut. And the wolf prepared to strike again. As Jinwoo's fortress braced for the storm glimpsed on the horizon, Baruka's mission pivoted from mere survival to delicate diplomacy and shadow politics. The covert operation tasked by Jinwoo was no longer a hunt through cursed wilds but a journey into the tangled webs of alliances and betrayals that defined the fractured realms beyond. Baruka had always been a warrior first, strength and instinct guiding his every move. But this new battlefield tested a different kind of skill. Each encounter required a careful balance of charm and caution, strength and subtlety. He ventured into forgotten cities carved from black stone, where old magic brewed beneath crumbling spires and whispered alliances were forged amid flickering torchlight. Here, among rogue shadows and exiled sorcerers, Baruka wove fragile trust through shared hardships and mutual suspicion. The wolf's keen mind unraveled plots laid by unseen enemies, strategists manipulating events like a master puppeteer's strings. Baruka's blade was often silenced for words, his presence felt as much in shadowed council chambers as on blood-slicked battlefields. Yet, within the halls where loyalty was currency and deception the lingua franca, Baruka struggled against darker foes, enemies who wore faces of friends, and whispers that sought to unsettle even the strongest heart. Igris and Iron, though distant, sent occasional reinforcements, shadows loyal to Jinwoo but wary of Baruka's growing singular power. Tensions rose as Baruka balanced the need for secrecy with the ever-tightening net of politics. In moments stolen from battle and betrayal, Baruka's thoughts often returned to Jinwoo, the master whose calm and power tempered the wild storm within. Their bond, forged in shadow and flame, became the anchor amidst the shifting tides. Guided by this bond and the unyielding howl of the pack, Baruka prepared to face the greatest test yet, the unveiling of the true enemy weaving the darkness suffocating their world, the final thread before the storm breaks. The wolf's eyes gleamed with purpose. The pack must either stand as one, or fall splintered in shadow. Baruka's role had shifted. No longer solely a warrior hewn from raw strength and primal fury, he was now a leader navigating the tangled politics and shadows within Jinwoo's army. The mission beyond the abyssal rift revealed fractures not only in enemy lines but also in alliances forged among his own shadows. He walked the corridors of the fortress that night, shadows stretching long and cold alongside him. The weight of responsibility settled deeper within his chest, each decision a thread in a web that threatened to ensnare or liberate. Early victories had sown seeds of doubt among some commanders. Baruka's fierce independence, once a rallying spark, now cast long shadows of suspicion. His refusal to temper his storm with unquestioning obedience grated against those who revered order as salvation. Igris remained a constant shadow beside him, noble, relentless, a contrast to Baruka's wild flames. Their rivalry was a crucible forging strength, yet beneath that simmered unspoken respect. Strength unbalanced is a storm that destroys all, Igris said quietly during a strategy session. The pack needs not just fire but steady hands. Baruka replied with fierce conviction. Better a tempest that burns away rot than a stillness that breeds decay. Yet beneath words was the recognition that balance was survival. Baruka's journey now was not just fighting enemies but mastering himself and the fragile unity of those who followed. As whispers of conspiracy and treachery wove through the fortress halls, Baruka moved with sharpened focus, uncovering hidden threats, shadows within shadows threatening to unravel everything Jinwoo built. In stolen moments, Baruka trained relentlessly, his twin crescents singing in the dim light. He knew that the coming storm demanded more than strength, wits, will, and the unbreakable spirit of a true leader. Jinwoo's quiet confidence was a tether, but Baruka's fire was theirs to ignite. The web of fate tightened. The wolf prepared to leap. The weight of leadership settled heavily upon Baruka's shoulders as shadows deepened around Jinwoo's fortress. More than battles fought with steel and shadow, his journey now tested the core of his being, the balance between raw power and tempered wisdom, between fierce independence and loyal unity. Baruka's nights were restless, haunted by visions and voices of those lost in the abyssal rift, by whispered doubts planted like thorns among allies and enemies alike. His pride, once an untamed blaze, now danced dangerously close to consuming him. Training became meditation, each swing of his twin crescent blades a ritual, forging clarity amidst chaos. In these moments, Baruka wrestled with his inner storms, the fierce warrior who demanded freedom clashing with the leader who must bind the pack. Igris and Iron stood nearby, their presence both comforting and challenging. Igris's steady gaze reminded Baruka of discipline's necessity, while Iron's booming strength spoke to the power that anchored their line. "You carry a tempest inside," Igris said softly. "But even storms must find their path or risk destruction." Baruka's reply was a flicker of a weary smile. "The wolf seeks its path through the storm, not away from it." Days later, as Jinwoo revealed the depths of the enemy's plot, a vast network of shadow manipulators intent on unraveling the world order, Baruka felt destiny tighten its grip. The covert mission had become a crucible, igniting transformation. Strategizing alongside Jinwoo and the council, Baruka's role evolved from lone hunter to master tactician and unifier, his resolve hardened by trials but tempered by newfound humility. In moments of solitude, Baruka reflected on his journey, a fragmented soul rebuilt through blood, shadow, and loyalty. He understood now, strength alone would not save their world. Only unity forged from respect and shared purpose could withstand the coming storm. As the web of intrigue and war tightened, Baruka prepared to lead not only with claws but with heart. The wolf was ready to face whatever darkness awaited, alone or as leader of the pack. The tension within Jinwoo's shadows was a storm barely contained. Whispers of doubt and shifting loyalties mirrored the chaos rising beyond the fortress walls. Baruka felt the weight of it in every deliberate step, every glance sharpened by suspicion and burdened by the cost of leadership. Every mission since emerging from the abyssal rift had transformed him, a warrior reborn, a leader refined by fire and shadow. He no longer fought just with claws and blades but with conviction and care for those who walked beside him in darkness. The quiet moments between battles were when his greatest fights took shape. He wrestled with his pride, questioned his methods, and sought ways to unify a pack still fractured by fear and envy. Igris's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder and challenge. True strength lies within balance, not dominance. Iron's steady presence affirmed the truth in loyalty and force. Baruka's growth was both fierce and fragile, a dance of power tempered by humility, independence bound by respect. At a crucial council meeting, Jinwoo laid out the true stakes, the enemy's grand design not just to conquer but to sever the ties binding the shadows, to shatter Jinwoo's empire from within. Baruka's role crystallized not only as warrior or commander but as the linchpin of unity, destined to shape the fate of the pack. With measured resolve, he spoke to the council. "We face not just darkness, but deception. The pack must not fracture, for only together can we weather the storm to come." His words forged a fragile truce in the room, kindling hope amid tension. As the chapter closed, Baruka stood once more on the fortress ramparts, the crescent moon casting a cold silver over a world on the brink. The wolf's eyes burned with unyielding fire, a symbol of survival, strength, and a future still to be claimed. The weight of command pressed heavily on Baruka's broad shoulders as the shadow chessboard unfolded beneath Jinwoo's command. No longer merely a shockwave of primal fury and serrated crescent blades, Baruka was becoming something far more complex, a leader forged by hardship and tempered in the fires of loyalty and doubt. The fortress was a crucible of tension, old alliances fracturing beneath the strain of war's endless march. Baruka felt the sharp stings of suspicion and envy as close allies whispered behind veiled glances. The wolf had grown, but so had the shadows his every action cast. Even Igris, fiery and unwavering, challenged him. Baruka, your strength is your storm, but storms can erode. Temper your fire with wisdom or risk burning what you seek to protect. Baruka met Igris's steady gaze, a flicker of respect hidden beneath fierce pride. Wisdom is learned through flame and shadow. The wolf does not fear fire, it survives by mastering it. Balancing raw power with strategic insight, Baruka trained rigorously, not just his blades, but his mind, seeking clarity amid the swirling chaos. The coming threats would test not only physical limits but the bonds that held Jinwoo's shadows like a tapestry, each thread fragile, each connection vital. Plans unfolded, rides and whispers of diplomacy tangled with swords and sorcery. The enemy was no longer just a face but a shadow cast over future horizons, threatening to unravel everything Baruka's pack had fought to secure. In these moments alone, Baruka wrestled with his evolving identity, caught between the wolf who thrived on the hunt and the commander tasked with uniting a broken pack. Yet beneath all uncertainty blazed an unyielding truth. Survival required more than might. It demanded trust, sacrifice, and the courage to lead beyond the blade. As night settled heavy upon the fortress, Baruka stepped onto the ramparts, the crescent moon reflecting in his spectrally burning blades. The wolf's eyes, haunted, fierce, hopeful, gazed toward the dark horizons. The storm was closer than ever. And the hunt had only just begun. Days blurred into nights beneath the ever-watchful presence of Jinwoo and the Shadow Empire. Baruka found himself caught in a maelstrom of shifting loyalties and whispered intrigues within the fortress walls. The battleground had evolved from raw conflict to a complex dance of power, trust, and betrayal. The wolf who once reveled in the chaos of battle now bore the weight of others' hopes, fears, and fractured faith. That weight pressed him into sleepless nights, his crescent blades like cold reminders resting across a gauntlet-worn hand. Memories of lost comrades haunted the quiet moments between strategy and skirmish, scars within and without whispered of sacrifices made and debts owed. Yet within this darkness flickered a growing fire, Baruka's determination to rise beyond the hunter of flesh and become a leader of souls, a uniter of shadows. Igris's steady counsel was a lifeline. Strength alone will not bind a broken pack. We must forge new paths of loyalty grounded not in fear, but in respect. Baruka nodded, the wolf's pained pride yielding to hard-earned humility. Then I will be the storm that tempers, not rages. The pack endures as one. As Jinwoo's shadows rallied, Baruka's resolve hardened. The greatest battle lay ahead, not just with enemies clawing from the dark, but within their own ranks. Word reached him of fractures widening, new factions seeking control, whispered deals with shadowy outsiders that threatened the fragile peace. Baruka's mind raced through possibilities, strategies, and sacrifices. Leadership demanded more than power. It demanded courage, the courage to confront friends and foes alike for the survival of all. Standing once more before the moonlit ramparts, Baruka's eyes flickered with unyielding fire, the storm within ready to break. The wolf's howl rose, a clarion call echoing through shadows and heart alike. Their destiny was forged in fire and shadow, and Baruka would lead them through the darkest night. Baruka stood alone on the mist-shrouded ramparts, the crescent moon's pale light tracing sharp lines across his battle-worn face. The storm that had once roared within him now simmered, refined into a fierce determination tempered by nights spent wrestling with doubt and death. The wolf that prowled through shadows could no longer rely on claws alone. Now, he wielded the burden of unity as surely as his spectral blades. Within the fortress, whispers of mistrust and rivalry still wove unseen webs among Jinwoo's shadow soldiers. Baruka sensed each fracture, each hesitant glance, each guarded word, as a rift growing beneath their feet. What once had been unquestioned loyalty now wavered on uncertain edges. Igris approached silently, his crimson sword sheathed yet ever present, a symbol of discipline and honor he hoped Baruka would one day fully embrace. You run with the storm, Baruka, Igris said quietly. But storms can destroy all in their path. Leadership demands the patience to guide the lightning, not just the fury. Baruka met the challenge not with fire, but with steady resolve. A storm without its lightning is merely a silent gathering. One must learn when to strike and when to wait. Their uneasy truce reflected the delicate balance Baruka walked, a path of growing responsibility, self-mastery, and growing care for those who followed him. Beyond personal trials, a darker fury stirred. Enemy forces conspired in shadowed realms, their whispers carrying promises of ruin and chaos. Baruka's covert gains revealed only fragments of a web of power stretching across corrupted kingdoms and ancient lores. Yet with every revelation came deeper resolve, from hunter to leader, from soldier to guardian of Jinwoo's burgeoning empire. The wolf howled into the night, a vow cast like steel upon the winds. The storm was their crucible. They would endure. And Baruka would lead their pack through the darkest night to the dawn. Darkness surged across the fractured lands beyond the fortress, a foretold storm that threatened to swallow Jinwoo's empire whole. Shadows twisted and writhed like living nightmares, promising chaos and oblivion. Baruka, the wolf reborn from primal rage and tempered leadership, stood at the forefront of this looming tempest. His spectral blades burned brighter than ever, casting a blue-tinged glow over the battlefield. Every muscle and sinew coiled with a ferocious resolve. The pack he led was fractured but unbroken, individually fierce, collectively unstoppable. Their task was clear: pierce the shadow web controlling the enemy's heart, a nexus of cursed magic and ancient power. Baruka's instincts carried him forward, his senses as sharp as his blades. The storm's eye was near, the core of darkness where all chaos originated. As shadows erupted into battles, Baruka moved like a specter, cloaked in spectral fire, tearing through cursed beasts and shadowy invaders with ruthless grace. But this battle was more than external. It was a test of the spirit, a crucible to forge enduring leadership from chaos. Alongside Jinwoo's commanding voice echoing in his mind, Baruka fought not just for victory, but for those who believed in him, those who saw in the ferocious wolf the hope of a new dawn. The nexus loomed, a swirling vortex of cursed energy, a pulsating heart of chaos searching for its next prey. Baruka's voice, steady and fierce, echoed across the battlefield. This ends today. For the pack, for our future, I will carve a path through the storm. The final clash was imminent, a storm of steel, shadow, and willpower. The storm descended in full fury. Baruka's shadow army clashed against the swirling mass of darkness at the nexus, the heart of chaos manipulating the tide of war. The air hummed with raw cursed energy as monstrous shapes emerged, twisted and writhing with ancient malice. The earth beneath shattered reality's fragile weave, and time fragmented into sharp jagged shards. Baruka moved like a living tempest. His twin crescent blades danced, ignited by Jinwoo's mana, slashing through cursed flesh and malevolent spirits. Every strike struck with the weight of survival and hope. But this battle fought not only against enemies of flesh and shadow, but the darkness gnawing at the spirit, the whispers of doubt sowed by the enemy's web of deceit. Visions wove intricate lies to weaken Baruka's resolve, a mirror of fallen comrades, broken trusts, and whispered betrayals. For a moment, the wolf faltered, torn between storm and shadow. Jinwoo's voice, a lifeline in the maelstrom, cut through the chaos. Focus, Baruka. This is the crucible. Your choices will forge the fate of shadows and light. With ragged breath and sharpened will, Baruka shattered illusions, his howl a roar of defiance that rallied the shattered pack. He unleashed the eclipsed wrath, a cyclone of spectral blades so fierce the nexus trembled and bled light. The enemy's hold cracked, and darkness fled into ragged shadows. Victory was won, but at great cost. Baruka stood amid the ruins, scarred, weary, but unbroken. The wolf had led the pack through storm and shadow, and history's weight settled on his shoulders. Jinwoo approached silently, the bond between master and shadow heavier, yet unspoken. You have risen beyond a soldier, Jinwoo said quietly. You are the storm that will carry us through. Baruka's eyes glowed with fierce promise. And the wolf never runs alone. The storm had passed, but the night was still young. The hunt continued. The air was thick with charged energy as Baruka faced the swirling heart of the Nexus. Around him, the pack moved as one, shadows intertwined, fierce and unified despite the fractures that once threatened to pull them apart. Baruka's journey from wild warrior to beacon of leadership had been forged in pain, sacrifice, and relentless determination. Here, at the precipice of ruin, every choice bore the weight of countless lives depending on his strength and wisdom. The enemy's final assault was brutal, a tempest of cursed magic, dark spirits, and twisted flesh determined to snuff out the light of Jinwoo's empire. Yet Baruka stood unbroken. His twin crescent blades arced with spectral fire, cutting through foe and shadow alike. Each strike was a promise, a vow to those who followed him and the world they fought to protect. Visions born of darkness sought to unravel his mind, lost friends, whispered betrayals, haunting failures. For a moment, doubt clawed at his heart. But the wolf's spirit roared back, fierce, unyielding. With Jinwoo's guiding voice echoing through the storm, Baruka unleashed the eclipsed wrath, an indescribable fury of shadow and flame that shattered the Nexus's core and banished the darkness. Victory was won but not without cost. Wounds both seen and unseen marked the pack, and new responsibilities weighed heavier than ever. Jinwoo approached Baruka within the ruin's fading light, respect and unspoken trust illuminating his gaze. You are no longer merely my shadow, Jinwoo said quietly. You are the spearhead of a new dawn. Baruka's eyes burned with hope and fierce promise. Then let this dawn be the storm that cleanses the night. As light and shadow danced in fragile balance, the hunt continued. The wolf led the pack into the unknown, undaunted, unbroken, and ready. The air crackled with raw energy as Baruka faced the swirling heart of the enemy's nexus. Around him, Jinwoo's shadows moved as one, united despite scars and rivalries, fierce and resolute. Baruka had matured beyond the fierce orc lord he once was. His strength was now matched by wisdom forged through loss, trust rebuilt from betrayal, and an unyielding will to protect. The enemy launched their fiercest assault, dark spirits and twisted creatures pounding like the raging storm. The ground cracked, and the fabric of reality pulsed with malignant power. Baruka's blades ignited with Jinwoo's cursed energy, slicing through enemies with precision and furious grace, each strike a vow to his pack and the future they fought to secure. Dark illusions tried to unravel his mind, whispering of past failures and fractured loyalties. For a fleeting moment, the wolf hesitated, caught between storm and shadow. But with Jinwoo's voice echoing firm and strong, Baruka roared, a fierce shout of defiance shattering the lies and rallying his comrades. Unleashing the legendary eclipsed wrath, Baruka's spectral blades created a cyclone of light and shadow that shattered the enemy's core, sending the darkness fleeing in shattered remnants. Exhausted yet unbroken, Baruka stood among the ruins, the weight of his journey settling like a mantle upon him. Jinwoo approached, eyes reflecting deep trust. You are no longer just a shadow, Baruka. You are the spearhead of our new dawn. Baruka's piercing gaze met his master's, burning with unyielding promise. Then let our dawn be as fierce as any storm. As light and shadow clashed in fragile harmony, Baruka led the pack forward, not just as a warrior, but as the heart of their hope. The hunt was far from over. Baruka stood at the helm of Jinwoo's shadow army, the weight of new battles and unseen enemies pressing with relentless urgency. Victory at the Nexus had forged temporary calm, but the true tempest brewed, a storm of political intrigue, fractured loyalties, and rising dark forces beyond the known realms. Once a lone wolf reckless in pride and rage, Baruka had grown into a leader careful to balance ferocity with strategy, strength with empathy. His presence commanded respect, not only for his power but for his unwavering dedication to the pack's unity. Council chambers became stages of delicate diplomacy. Baruka listened to voices tinged with fear, suspicion, and hope, weaving alliances from shards of trust. Igras, steadfast in honor, offered counsel that tempered Baruka's fire. Leadership is not the howl of a lone wolf, but the harmony of the pack. Iron's booming strength underscored the need for disciplined power. Baruka absorbed their wisdom, sensing the truth in balance, claws sharpened, but wielded with care. Outside the walls, darkness spread like poison threads into distant lands. Whispered rumors told of shadow factions awakening, of enemies embracing ancient magics forbidden and wild. Baruka's choices now bore the fate of countless lives and the fragile peace Jinwoo had fought to secure. Standing beneath the crescent moon's pale light, he sharpened his twin blades and vowed silently, the wolf did not fear storms. He embodied them, and he would lead his pack through the gathering tempest, or perish trying. The fortress was alive with restless energy, a fragile calm underlain by the gathering storm. Baruka, once a solitary warrior driven by primal urges, had grown into a leader whose strength was measured not just by steel but by the bonds he forged and the sacrifices he embraced. Every decision was a thread in the tapestry of survival, every command a test of trust. Baruka moved through the war room with purpose, balancing daring strategies with the delicate politics of loyalty and fear. His eyes reflected a fire tempered by humility and wisdom, qualities earned through battles fought in shadow and spirit. He remembered tales of great leaders, Aragorn's steadfast honor, Harry Potter's reliance on friendship and sacrifice, Katniss Everdeen's reluctant courage. These stories shaped his resolve. True leadership was not about solitary greatness but about inspiring and uniting others, especially amid adversity. Tensions rose as factions within the army questioned his methods, wary of his ferocity and independence. Yet Baruka met doubt with unwavering conviction, his creed clear: the wolf leads by the strength of the pack, not the roar of one. Outside the fortress, new threats stirred, shadow factions awakening with ancient, forbidden magics. The looming tempest was both external and internal. Baruka's leadership now required every skill, tactical genius, emotional resilience, and the humility to accept help. As he gazed into the dark horizon, Baruka vowed to lead his pack through the gathering tempest, undaunted, united, unstoppable. The battlefield was a tempest of shadow and flame, the final crucible where destinies were forged. Baruka stood at the forefront, his twin crescent blades glowing with spectral fire, a living storm amidst chaos. The enemy, twisted by ancient malice and dark magic, swarmed with relentless fury, seeking to drown Jinwoo's empire in darkness. Yet Baruka's pack moved as one, a united force born from hardship, trust, and unyielding resolve. Every clash was a symphony of will and strength, every victory a testament to the bonds Baruka had forged. His leadership had transformed scattered shadows into an unbreakable pack, a force that bridged primal ferocity with strategic genius. Amidst the roaring battle, Baruka faced the dark heart of the enemy, a shadow manipulator whose power threatened to unravel everything. Illusions screamed of betrayal, failure, and death, clawing at Baruka's spirit. But the wolf within roared louder, driven by the love for his pack and the vision of a future free from shadow's chokehold. With the final, shattering strike of the eclipsed wrath, Baruka shattered the enemy's hold, banishing the darkness and sealing a new dawn for Jinwoo's empire. The battlefield stilled as light broke through the shadows, illuminating the scars of war and the hope reborn from ashes. Jinwoo approached, solemn yet proud. You are no longer a shadow soldier. You are the wolf who leads the pack through darkness. Baruka lowered his blades, eyes blazing with fierce pride and humility. We walk forward, together, as one. The storm had passed. The hunt was won. But the journey of the shadow wolf was just beginning. As dawn bled into the sky, Baruka stood tall, a leader, a legend, an eternal storm shaping the fate of shadows and light. Thank you for journeying with us through the shadows and storms of Baruka's epic rise. From fierce warrior to unyielding leader, his saga reminds us that true strength lies not just in power, but in loyalty, sacrifice, and the bonds that tie us together. If this adventure captured your heart, please like, share, and comment your favorite moment below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss our future tales.